Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Udis. Welcome to this series on the network of global corporate control. The network of global corporate control is also known as the Banking Cartel. Today's segment is live. The last live segment told you the story of the global currency reset. Today's segment answers Yolanda's question, who is in control? Thanks to DCTV, to Carmen Stanley, studio producer and director, Cruchet Starnes, audio and teleprompter, and Aliyah Jamari, floor director. Cruchet is helping us today again as a volunteer. We're streaming 1 hour later than our customary time slot. This is to make it easier for future volunteers. Let's start out with what you see around you. John F. Kennedy said to the press corps in 1961, "For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It's a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. In this series, that's the end of the quote from JFK. In this series, I've been describing a fierce battle with the banking cartel. What's my role in this battle? I'm speaking for the opposition to the banking cartel that JFK just described. Who am I? I'm a lawyer and economist who spent 21 years in the World Bank's legal department and kept on reporting corruption every chance I got, and to this very day. I'm also the person appointed by the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund to act as Overseer Mandate Trustee for the trust that contains the world's monetary gold reserves and other wealth that was deposited at the end of World War II with the World Bank and IMF. I write on World Bank letterhead, and nobody stops me or contradicts me. Last week, I told Donald Trump that he was not the Commander-in-Chief of the United States military forces. In May, The Atlantic had an article which was billed on its cover as the military's plunging morale, and this article says in the sidebar that morale of American service members is perilously low. The article gives other reasons, but leaves out the main reason that the military's morale is low. It's because the military cannot fulfill their oath to defend the Constitution. The United States Constitution of 1789 is not in effect. Yesterday, I replied to a tweet from the White House about the United States Embassy move to Jerusalem. And you can see in the teleprompter my reply. I said, "Your effort to start a conflagration in the Middle East has been trumped by progress in the global currency reset. We know your presidency is illegitimate." How do we know that Trump's presidency is illegitimate? It's because the United States Constitution of 1789 is not in effect. The corruption that J.F. Kennedy was referring to in his 1961 speech to the press corps is long-standing. There has been secret martial law in the United States ever since 1861. Then, in 1871, as a result of the Revolutionary War debts falling due to the banking cartel, a second secret constitution was put into place. Following that, in 1933, the United States federal government went into bankruptcy. If all this corruption wasn't enough, the United States Congress has been suspending the Constitution under a state of emergency. My efforts are starting to strike home, although the banking cartel is trying to keep people from finding this out. A couple of days ago, one of the people who commented on my YouTube channel made the mistake of posting the World Bank's financial statements and the people who signed them. One of the signers was Pope Benedict XVI. I called him out. I said, Pope Benedict XVI signs World Bank financial statements and is outed with the rest of the crooks trying to steal the world's assets from humanity. There was a sharp reaction to this tweet as the banking cartel responded with Interpol, Queen Elizabeth, and the United Nations, as well as Ferdinand Marcos' son, Tiburcio Villamor Marcos Tolano Tajian IV. This only escalated matters, and I countered by pointing out that the banking cartel was not able to keep me from exposing them or the corruption. We're looking at a chain of dominoes falling. The coalition that's backing the exchange of Federal Reserve notes for the United States monetary gold reserves in the global debt facility is gaining control. In summary, the dominoes that are falling are hastening the global currency reset. The dominoes are the corrupt money system of the banking cartel. I also want to show you another occasion 2 years ago where the Vatican got involved. That was when the acting president of the World Bank tried to invalidate the global debt facility and fire me. Bertrand Badre, who was then acting president of the World Bank, was fired instead. The Vatican also tried to steal the assets in the global debt facility by signing a so-called galactic agreement. I invalidated this attempt, and I'll give you the language in the emails when I did that. I sent an email to Sean Hagan on the 1st of February 2016. Subject: Governance Issues at the World Bank and IMF. Dear Mr. Hagan, I've been in contact with you over the years concerning the governance issues at the Bretton Woods institutions. In 2012, the Board of Governors reinstated me as acting General Counsel of the World Bank, and following the annual meetings in Peru, appointed me as Overseer Mandate Trustee of the Global Debt Facility, containing the world's international monetary gold reserves. More recently, I've filed interim financial statements of the Global Debt Facility with the Securities and Exchange Commission. In this connection, please verify whether there is any truth to the attached story that you accompanied Christine Lagarde to the Vatican for signature of an agreement that was not authorized by either the Board of Governors or the Board of Executive Directors of the IMF. If this is the case, both you and Ms. Lagarde exceeded the authority of the managing director in the IMF's Articles of Agreement. The purported agreement is null and void ab initio. That means from the start. On the 6th of February 2016, Cynthia Lichtenstein, who's a lawyer, she used to be a professor at Boston Law School, she wrote, Subject: American branch of the ILA Board of Directors. Action required. To the American branch of the International Law Association Executive Committee. I was on that executive committee until they kicked me off recently. And this was sent on the 6th of February 2016, this email. I shall also ask a branch member on the ILA's Monetary Committee, Sean Hagan, General Counsel of the IMF, if he might consider repeating at International Law Weekend the most interesting talk he just gave to the Sovereign Bankruptcy Group, which is an ILA study group, in a telephone conference that was arranged by Allen and Overy on the fund's most recent policy statements on sovereign difficulties. Best to all, Cynthia. And then she signed that as the Professor Emeritus. And as a member of the ILA's Executive Committee, I then pointed out that Sean Hagan had exceeded his authority as General Counsel of the IMF and that Cynthia Lichtenstein's proposal was out of order and usurped the Program Committee of the International Law Weekend. What happened after this? 10 days later, the acting president of the World Bank, Bertrand Badre, tried to invalidate the global debt facility containing the world's assets and issued an arrest warrant for me on Interpol. What happened then? I invalidated what Badre tried to do, and I had Badre fired, and he was fired. Now, let me read you from the article. It was called White Hat's Auxiliaries. And actually, I commented, I said in the comment to the article, the United States is in interregnum. Christine Lagarde is working for the network of global corporate control, which was identified by Vitaly Glatfelder and Battiston of ETH Zurich. And she has no authority to commit the IMF to any galactic agreement. If this agreement were signed by Christine Lagarde, not only is it null and void, but she is also fired for exceeding her authority under the Articles of Agreement of the IMF. And then I give you the link to that article. And I cited the Articles of Agreement, Article 12, Section 2, which provides all powers under this agreement not conferred directly on the Board of Governors, the Executive Board, or the Managing Director shall be vested in the Board of Governors. The Managing Director of the IMF shall conduct, under the direction of the Executive Board, the ordinary business of the fund. Since neither the Board of Governors nor the Executive Directors of the IMF approved the so-called Galactic Agreement, Christine Lagarde had no authority to commit the IMF to the purported Galactic Agreement. The General Counsel of the IMF would also have to be fired for incompetence and inability to properly interpret the Articles of the IMF. The Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF have already committed to replace the unconstitutional Federal Reserve notes for constitutional currency issued by the U.S. Treasury Department, composed of the monetary gold reserves of the U.S. that are administered by the Board of Governors in the global debt facility. Pope Francis, under the Grey Pope, who is in turn elected by the bloodline families, and under the Black Pope, Adolfo Nicholas, that was at the time Superior General of the Society of Jesus, have been secretly skimming off the taxes collected by the network of global corporate control. The Ponzi scheme known as country debt has been offset by the 2 quadrillion in Treaty of Versailles bonds issued by the Federal Reserve Bank and the rest of the interconnected private central banks that belong to the insolvent Bank for International Settlements. The Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF declared these central banks in receivership in the global debt facility on April 19, 2015. Now I'll give you my conversation with Yolanda about who is in control, and then I'll show you how some of the dominoes, that is, the corrupt money system, is falling. What's helping us to be certain about the way the dominoes are falling is the understanding that Japan and Germany are not going to allow the Federal Reserve note to fail and unilaterally surrender the U.S. military might. We know this from the power transition model that came from the United States National War College. And this is from Yolanda, and you can read her comment on YouTube. Hello, Karen. I appreciate very much what you're doing. I follow your videos for a while now. I don't want to offend you, but despite of all, I've quite some questions and doubts. For instance, when is the planning for the reset, and what is exactly in your way? Regarding World War III, it's obvious what's going on in and against Syria, the trade war against China, the demonizing of Russia, the sanctions against Iran. They are pushing for war. How can Trump, along with France and Great Britain, still send missiles to Syria? The Israelis bombed Syria without any notice in the mainstream media. Everything said is breaking international laws. The stock market is without doubt massively and off the Richter scale manipulated, and that is worldwide. Who is doing that with whose money? This said, I don't see how you're in control. Please explain. And the explanations are hidden behind buttons, but you can find them if you click. My response to Yolanda. Hi, Yolanda. We're doing things differently. The false flags aren't working, as you have pointed out. Who's in control? We are, because we see through the lies and corruption. Syria knows that we are all in this together, and that we see what the banking cartel is trying to do, and we do not buy their agenda. There's a critical mass that sees through the lies at work already. We're just getting started. The planning for the reset, we're cutting off their money and bribes, for starters. And then we're going to go back and make other decisions as we decentralize. The takeaway that the banking cartel is pushing for war to keep their corrupt money system is evident. But they're not getting away with what they want, are they? They're getting an increasing number of people who see through their lies. Don't forget that they're not getting their hands on the assets in the global debt facility. That is evident. And then I had another comment. Pull the trigger, but the trigger is the Coalition for the Rule of Law. That is, all of us working together. As we accumulate more people who know the difference between reality and the banking cartel's lies, then we gain people in the coalition exponentially for implementing the currency exchange. We've achieved that the global currency reset is inevitable and manifest in reality by reaching and convincing a critical mass of people. The global currency reset is like a chain of dominoes falling. The trigger has already been pulled, and we need for the chain of dominoes, fueled by more and more people learning what reality is, to continue working its relentless way. 2/3 of the population is not going to be killed because the banking cartel has lost its control. That's evident. And then Yolanda said, Karen, pull the trigger wasn't a reaction of mine. By the way, the reaction is gone. And then another comment from Yolanda. Not a very clear answer. How can they still manipulate the stock markets massively? Who's doing that with whose money? And so Nick Blaine said, Yolanda, you must frame this argument within the context of seniorage. That is, the difference between the cost of dollars and the value of dollars. This surplus in value should be retained by the people. Each individual holds these notes. Each individual is entitled to the face value of the bills. Unfortunately, we do not currently hold this value as bearer of the notes. This is where discrepancy in market values make claim to the foregoing facts. With this segment, I'm documenting the corruption in the world's monetary system. I've been able to provide very detailed information because I've been working with the world's whistleblowers and others for many years. The assets in the global debt facility remain for the global currency reset. The moochers, also known as ancient Pharaonic bloodlines, have had their day, and that day is clearly over for once and for all. And on the 13th of May, I said in a tweet to the Coalition for the Rule of Law, I'm showing you a 3-year-old tweet containing a comment that RT, that's Russia Today, never posted, all about the corruption in the world's auditors. And there's a link in the teleprompter, and you can see if you click on the link that RT still has that article. But my comment on the article was never published by RT. They said it was under moderation. And so I said, the banking cartel blocked last week's tweet, so I'm reprinting it at the back. The banking cartel has obviously forgotten that with the critical mass of people who see the differences between reality and the lies of the banking cartel, blocking the information that I provide only backfires by confirming the existence of the banking cartel and what it is they're trying to censor. What is it they're trying to censor? That all their attempts to steal humanity's assets in the global debt facility, including the world's monetary gold reserves, have failed. The banking cartel consists of bumbling, impotent idiots. Their attempts to hide my posts only confirms the existence of these assets that do not belong to the banking cartel or any of its agents, including that liar Tiburcio Villamor Marcos Tolano Tajian IV. And then I tweeted, another day, another failed attempt of a crook trying to steal the wealth of the world in the global debt facility. And I wrote, as a whistleblower who was retaliated against for trying to correct inaccurate financial reporting in the World Bank's financial statements, I testified in 2012 about the corruption in the international financial system to the Committee on Budgetary Control of the European Parliament. I also reported this corruption to Dr. Joseph Moser, who was then president of the Austrian Rechnungshof and Secretary General of the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions. The staff member in the European Parliament who advised me to keep my email to Dr. Joseph Moser was fired for his efforts to end the corruption I had reported. And Russia Today said, the comment will be published after moderation, and it was never published. And then this is the letter or the email that I sent to Mr. Moser, and it was copied to Intosai. Subject, Audit of the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. It was sent on the 8th of November 2012 to Dr. Joseph Moser, President of the Austrian Rechnungshof and Secretary General of Intosai. Your Excellency, I've been reporting significant and pervasive control deficiencies at the World Bank for many years as in-house counsel at the World Bank. The World Bank refused to cooperate with the U.S. Government Accountability Office investigation requested by Senators Lugar, Leahy, and Bai. And then they wrote in a report, in March 2009, GAO staff stated that we cannot begin this work because of the challenges we recently faced in gaining access to World Bank officials to discuss these types of questions. We are continuing to negotiate access with World Bank officials, but this process is likely to take at least several months. Senator Lugar's staff continues to press the World Bank and GAO to begin this report during the first half of 2010. And then on page 18, you can see that statement. And then I wrote to Dr. Moser. I'm now a bondholder of the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development and commenced litigation against the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development and its external auditor, KPMG. I've requested the board of the World Bank to remove this litigation from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. The World Bank's General Counsel, who's supervising the litigation, is part of the internal control lapses. I've testified before the European Parliament, and the UK Parliament posted my evidence on its website twice. The latest testimony was published on the 2nd of November 2012, and you can see the links where the UK Parliament published my testimony. I spoke this morning at length with Mr. Einar Garrison about my request for Intisai to advise the Dean of the World Bank's board, Dr. Mirza Hassan, on this matter. And then I signed the email. And then here is an email dated the 9th of November 2012 from the person who was fired at the European Parliament to me. And then I'm giving you a translation because it was originally in Dutch. Hi, what does this mean precisely? I still have difficulty with your generalizations like bring into compliance and rule of law without precise definitions and concrete meanings. Sorry. I would keep your email to Dr. Joseph Moser as a Word document with date, sender, and recipient in the file name. I'm incorporating this information about the Philippines because we're building on Ferdinand Marcos's efforts in the global currency reset, and also because Jose Rizal, who deposited the wealth of the world in the global debt facility, worked with the Datus. In 2 recent tweets, I responded to the personal representative of wealthy persons in the Philippines and to the leader of the Datus. The first tweet provides a good introduction and summary for newbies, and you can get that by clicking on the links in the teleprompter. The people of the world, and this includes the rank and file in the world's military powers, are cleaning up the mess left by all of this corruption. And my telling indigenous people in the Philippines that I must focus on winding down the banking cartel now that the black nobility and their corruption has been revealed. It's important for me to repeat Will Rogers's advice so that people understand my role as Overseer Mandate Trustee of the Global Debt Facility. I say that we're all in this together. I'm not about pulling rank. This that I'm doing is a job which I'm doing on behalf of all of us. And even though part of my job is to tell it like it is to the world's muckety-mucks, I understand that each and every person who is fed up with the banking cartel is just as good as anybody else. And then what Will Rogers said, if you get to thinking you're a person of influence, try ordering somebody else's dog around. As the corruption in the world's money comes into better focus, so do the people responsible for trying to cover it up. Thank you for listening.